Hello, fight fans, and welcome to the Combat Challenge podcast. My guest is a welterweight MMA athlete with 9 fights to his name and is recently announced to have his professional bout on Almighty Fighting Championship, which will take place on 7th of August at Metrodome, Barnsley, against Chris Hill. He also competes out of Next Generation MMA Liverpool under the guidance of head coach Mr. Paul Rimmer, Mr. Ben Petches Kelly. Ben, thank you so much for joining us, my brother.
Nice one, mate. Nice one for having us on.
Brother, you like that introduction?
Yeah, it's smooth, lad. Feel like you've been practicing that one all day, lad.
I've just been thinking about it all day, man. Thinking that Ben Petches is on. I need to get it right, man. And then you keep me waiting 5 minutes. So, Ben, so the first thing I've got to ask you, my brother, is this. Back in 2019, you competed on IMMAF. Can you tell me about that experience? First of all, how it came about and just the whole experience, and if it's something that you would recommend to other amateurs?
Yeah, so it came about because I fought on Cage Warriors in the February. And then, like, the week later, they were doing trials, but I signed up for it well before. But obviously, when I got to the trials a week after my fight, I was having a little week off, relaxing and that, and they still wanted me to go again. They got on me and said, I still want you on the team. So I went, done the trials. They said, we want you to go to the Euros. So it all just spiraled from there, really. But it was a good experience. Like, I've always liked the Olympics as a kid. Watching the Olympics, I loved the thought of going abroad and fighting and competing. And that's like the closest thing you're getting to the Olympics in MMA. You know what I mean? Obviously, unless you do like judo or taekwondo, something like that. But I personally enjoyed it. It was different. Going out to Italy, no coaches, no teammates, just literally on my own. I had my mum and dad and my family there, but they don't really know nothing about MMA. So it was good. It was a good experience, and I wouldn't recommend it, but I would recommend saving as well because it costs a lot. But I know what the board are doing now. They're trying to get the funding and the backing, so it's going in the right way. But when I done it, it was all off my own back, and to be honest, mate, it was quite expensive. That's why I didn't end up doing the Worlds that year, because it's just too much money for what you're getting.
And when it comes to the trials, where did you go for the trials and what did that consist of?
So I don't know if the trials are slightly different, but I went to a team training. They weren't really trials, I don't think, because I missed the first one. They sort of narrowed the numbers down, I think. But it was in a 12 gauge gym, I think. So I don't even know where it is, to be honest. Just drove up with Ellis, one of my coaches, one day, and it was just like a training session. We just done a few striking drills, a few wrestling drills, a few live jits rounds, and as you're doing it, the coaches are walking around, asking you questions, looking at what you're doing and that. And to be honest, I sort of knew from that session that I was going to get picked just because of the way I was on there, the way I performed. I'm not saying perform because it wasn't like a fight, I wasn't trying to show off, but the way I was handling myself and the way they were speaking to Ellis and speaking to myself, I sort of knew I was going to get picked anyway. It was just when are they going to say you've been picked?
And when you mentioned 12 gauge, would that have been Matt Thorpe's gym?
Yeah, because I think Matt was one of the coaches there at the time, so I think they just used this gym as like the up north one, and then I think they had a gym up north and a gym down south that they done it, and the one up north was Matt's.
And how come you didn't have any coaches go with you, and why were you there just with your parents?
Because obviously my parents and that, they just came out because they wanted to. They didn't have to come out. To be honest, I probably had one of the biggest like when I was fighting, one of the biggest reactions was probably when I fought, because I had my mum, my dad, 3 sisters, cousins. I had a good few, like 12 people end up going to Italy for this. Just making a holiday out of it and to support me. But for your coaches to go, you have to pay. So I had to pay for tournament fees. I think it was just £300 just to enter the tournament. But then if I wanted to take Ellis with me or Paul, I'd have to pay £300 again for them. But then obviously I couldn't just pay for them to come. I'd have to get them a hotel room. I'd have to sort of help them out because I'd feel bad just saying, oh, book your own flights, book your own hotel. Come and help me. I'll just pay the £300 and leave them with the more expensive bit. In the end run, the £300 nothing compared to hotels and flights for a week, because it's not just a weekend; it's a full week you're there. You have to be there. You have to get there Monday, have to sign in Tuesday. Your fight starts on Wednesday, I think it was, Wednesday or Thursday. So you're there for a full week, and obviously they've got families, they've got money they've got to earn, you know what I mean? So financially, it was just better to go on my own and use one of the coaches that the English team provided, Mark Spencer and James Doyle.
And a rough amount, how much did it cost for you to go there and spend the time there and come back? What would it cost a person to do that?
See, for me, I'm lucky because my dad helped me out a lot. Because obviously where he was coming, I just stayed with my family. Like everyone else stayed on like a campsite in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of Rome. Like just a few cabins that weren't really about me. I ended up staying miles away with my family, but I had to get up at like 6:30 in the morning to drive to the venue just to check my weight before I weighed in. But I'd rather do that than pay like 30 quid a night in this like moody campsite that everyone's on. It's proper run. It's like I've run down Butlins or Pontins, lad. It's not where you want to be when you're going abroad. Like, but after flights and hotel, like, you're probably paying about 400 or 500 quid for flights and hotel, plus your 300 for thingy. Like, it's 800 quid before you've paid for food or taxis or just drinks. You know what I mean? Before you pay for anything else, it's easy 600-700 quid.
Sure, brother. And you mentioned Mark Spencer and James Doyle. Were they part of the English coach team, you said?
Yeah, they came over as the head. I think Mark Spencer at the time, I think he still is, to be honest, is the head coach of like the English team. So he went out. I know his wife Mary was fighting as well, or Marie, sorry. I know she was fighting as well. So obviously he was there to support, but he was the head coach. James Doyle and Joe Doyle. Joe Doyle's the head of the females, and James helps out with the males and the females as well. But they were all there. So Mark Spencer was the one I was talking to before I even went to Rome about who I need to pay, who I need to get in contact with for certain things, where I need to stay and stuff like that. So really Mark was the one who was like my go-to for the IMMAF. I didn't really talk to anyone else but Mark and James. So it only made sense for them two to corner me, and Danny Mitchell helped out as well when I was over there, which is quite funny because he trains out of AVT where Chris Hill trains, but they're all good coaches who were there, who I used anyway. I can't really comment on anyone else because I didn't speak to them really. I just kept myself to myself and listened to what them coaches said to me because I didn't sort of knew it was going to be them.
Well, brother, let me tell you a fun fact. Mark Spencer, of all the MMA bouts that I had, apart from the first one, for 10 years, I trained under Mark Spencer and competed under him under full in Kazan, brother.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
That. I ended up fighting in my third fight, I think it was. I ended up fighting one of Mark's lads. That's how he ended up recognising me, because I ended up knocking one of Mark's lads out in like 5 seconds. And then from that, that's when he started like speaking, and I was like, oh, we should start looking at the IMMAFs and stuff like that. So that's where it all sort of spiraled from. We already knew what I was capable of from that fight. And
who did you fight? Who was the lad out of his gym?
I'm terrible with names, to be honest with you. I can't really remember. Something Khan, I think his name was.
Was it Adi Khan?
Yeah, Adi Khan it was, yeah. I fought him in my third fight on Cage Warriors Academy back in the day, and Mark was in the corner, and after that, and then didn't speak to him obviously after the fight, as you said, like congratulations and that. The IMMAF thing came up, and then after Christmas time, because it was in December, I was already fighting straight away in February. Just before, he was messaging me saying like good luck, and I've seen you apply for the IMMAFs and stuff like that, and it'd be good to see you and stuff like that.
Brother, it's a small world, you know. You mentioned Mark Spencer and also James Doyle. James, we used to call him James Big Sexy Doll. That was his fighting style. And even him, you know, we trained together for a decade, brother, and his striking and his kicks are just amazing, man. And then you mentioned Adi Khan. Adi Khan I know really well because he's from Bradford. And recently, before Hamzat got COVID, before that, he ended up going to Sweden, did Adi, and training with Hamzat Chimaev.
That's what I mean, but that's something I'm proud of, because it shows you the level of amateurs that I've fought. You know what I mean? I've only fought one journeyman, and that was in my second fight, and that was because some bitch pulled out fight week, like on the Thursday. I've already been cutting weight, So Ray Thompson said, "Oh, I'll just get you someone that quick." I was like, "Sweet, I'm not asking, I'm just fighting." But yeah, I'm proud to say that every person I've fought on amateur, bar one journeyman, is at a decent level, and if they stick at it, or if they have stuck at it, they probably do well. You know what I mean? I've only fought cream of the crop. I've never fought no. And there's always a risk I was going to get beat in every fight except for the journeyman. You know what I mean? There was always a risk I was going to get beat. I was just going to cruise right through them.
Now, brother, I know the name of the journeyman, right? Do you know what the journeyman was called?
Richard something. I can't remember the surname, to be honest. I'm proper bad with names. So I remember the first name or the second name.
I don't even think it was Richard. Was it Marcus Hammond?
It was Marcus Hammond. That's how good I am with names, lad.
Bro, I know more about you than you know about yourself.
Exactly, lad, exactly. Marcus Hammond, man, wow, what a guy.
Again, I know Marcus really well, only because he doesn't live that far from Bradford, and he has a so-called matchmaker and promoter called Darren Moffat. Right, and he runs like the QFC, and Darren Moffat is like the Don King sort of guy of like getting all these journeymen. And then he does like a podcast that I put up on the channel called Hands for Hire, and he tells all the funny stories. And the first person he had on was Marcus Hammond back in the days on that podcast. It's a small world, isn't it, brother?
A small world, lad. That QFC, lad, that in the first lockdown, that had me crying, lad. I was showing all the lads it a few weeks ago, like Reece Street and John Spencer, first 6 lads, and they were all buzzing, lad. I cry off that stuff, me, it's boss.
Well, Darren Moffat told me to get involved in it, and I said, brother, I can't get involved in that sort of stuff. It was craziness. But at one stage, right, we ended up getting kicked out of the gym. Right, and there were these 2 DJs, right? There was MC Bullet and MC Shawsey, right? Who ended up right. So they were going to have a fight, and the winner was going to get a £1 million contract somewhere to duet with Whitney Houston. and they ended up right having that fight in my back garden. So that's
we've got the video of that on it. You need to send me that. Some of them fights on there with boss.
I will do. It's craziness. That's actually on YouTube. If you were to type MC Shawsey versus MC Bullet, it's there. It's had thousands of views, brother. It's just madness. And the reason it's good is, with all due respect to them, they've got limited skills, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're the best fights, lad, when it's just no one who has a clue. They just swing and more Velcro landed than leather.
It's just windmills, isn't it? It's just...
Yeah, it is funny. That it is. It's good to watch, like, isn't it? It's entertaining, but
yeah, man, yeah.
You wouldn't survive a day in a normal gym.
For sure, man, for sure. And especially under this lockdown, it was an ideal thing to come about, you know.
Yeah, it was just entertainment for people when they were stuck inside. Just like, I literally used it as just to laugh, you know what I mean? Just turning on my phones on, there's a live stream, someone's getting their head punched in with Lonsdale gloves on.
Do you know what was crazy? Let me tell you the craziest story he had, right? He had 2 guys fighting, right? But we shouldn't laugh, man. Both of them suffered with a stroke. One was struggling with the left side, the other one with the right side, and he ended up having these 2 on fighting.
Fucking no.
Madness. And then you had people like Eric Sutton, Hayden Sheriff, you know, 1 against 6. Right, let me tell you the craziest thing he had. He had a guy fighting a dog. Yeah, the guy.
Is that in lockdown?
Yeah, he had a guy fighting a dog in the ring. So the dog had one of those, you know, arm protector things.
Yeah.
The guy had one of them against the dog, and he were trying to battle this dog. It was just crazy, man.
It's fucking crazy, and some people are just nutballs. Why the fuck would you ever agree to fight a dog? What the fuck?
But that Darren Moffat, man, honestly, he's become infamous because of this. And again, he's a really good friend of mine, is Darren Moffat. And it's just madness what one little trigger, you know, one thing can set off, and before you know it, it goes viral. And that's what's happened to him. I'm mad.
It's literally all it takes. That one little thing, it could be, it doesn't have to be like a fight. It could just be, say, you could fall over, lad, get it on video and it goes viral. You know what I mean? It's mad, isn't it?
For sure, brother. Anyway, let's go back to you, my friend. So can we talk a little bit about your martial arts journey from a young age? you know, was it any other disciplines, or did you fall into MMA? And which gyms did you end up going to where you've ended up where you are now?
So martial arts wise, no. Until I was about 15, there was nothing. Done the odd boxing class when I was a kid, like literally one or two. I think I done one karate class and got kicked out because I weren't paying attention when I was like 6. But yeah, I didn't do nothing. I played footy just like the normal kid would, just played footy. I liked footy when I was like 13, 14. Because actually, funny enough, I kept breaking my fingers playing football because I was in goal. I broke my fingers that many times that they said if you break your fingers again, you're going to have to get plates in your hand. But I was sort of falling out of love with footy then, like playing it anyway. So I ended up stopped playing footy. Then like I had a year off just doing the odd bits, going out with my mates and that, just being a stupid kid. And then end up watching MMA and that, so I thought I'd give it a go. Ended up begging my mum to pay for the gym, ended up going, and touch wood, I've never broke my hand since, even though I punch people in the face every day.
And next generation MMA Liverpool that you ended up going?
Yeah, that was the first gym I went to. What I done was when I knew I was starting, well, I was pretty sure as well to start, I googled MMA gyms close, and it came up with like all the gyms in Liverpool, obviously, and I went on Tapology and looked at who they had in each gym. So I had to look at which fighters that they're coming out, because I'm one of them. If I'm doing it properly. I don't want to just half-arse it. So before I started, I knew I wanted to fight this typical beginner. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be the best in the world, but I knew I wanted to be. So I had to look at who were like fighting and that, and I seen Paddy, Ellis, Vince, and I started watching these fights. I was thinking, fucking hell, these are good. You know what I mean? If I can go and train and learn the same way they have, I'll be half all right. You know what I mean? And so I decided it made sense. It was on my way home from school. Made sense just to go there, signed up. I actually went and done one free class, like a trial class, on like a Wednesday afternoon or something. I remember going at like, I ended up going at like 12 o'clock in the day to see like what time the class was. And all the lads had just finished training. So like it was all Paddy, Ellis, fucking Vince. Everyone was in shape because they were about to fight. And I've walked in, some skinny little 15-year-old kid with a moped, just looking around thinking, I'm going to get me a panned in here. Then he's like, come back later at 6 o'clock. I was like, sweet, came back, done that one, came back the next day, paid me month, and they've been going ever since.
But you know what's really cool there, my brother? It's not the fact that, you know, you just thought, oh, I want to go and train at an MMA thing because it's the in thing or it's something I want to do. You did your research, and to say that you were 15 and to take your time and try to find the right gym, a lot of people just go for whatever's closest and they don't really focus on the coaches. And for you to go on Tapology, that's a really good thing for you to do, right?
Yeah, definitely, because Next Gen's not the closest gym to me, to be honest with you. There's another gym in Liverpool, which is about 10 minutes from my house, which I could easily go to. But again, I just didn't see the level of fighters there. I didn't see that. Like, I looked at people like who they had, and I seen like Rosie Sexton was in the UFC, but obviously that was way back when. But I seen like Paddy was starting to get big then. Vince just that came off his big fight in the Olympia, and all these fighters are looking to me the same as the lads that I see watch on the UFC. You know what I mean? I only ever watched the UFC then, so watching these like smaller shows on YouTube, and I was thinking they're not that far off. You know what I mean? Like, I could see him beating him. I could see him beating him, and thought, fuck it, I'll go to this gym. They've got the best fighters in Liverpool. Makes sense. If I want to be good, may as well go and train with the best, or try and train with the best at least, because I didn't know that you went in and you were training with the fighters. I thought you just work your way up. But the way it works in our gym, you can get put with a pro in your first day, and they help you through it. You know what I mean? It's not just they're trying to kill you, they're trying to knock you out. They're trying to help you, they're trying to learn, they're trying to teach you, and that's what it was like in Next Gen. But to be honest, if I went to the gym and they were fucking trying to knock me out and maybe being fucking, obviously showing their experience, like if I first went in there and sparred, I don't know, Paddy, Ellis, Vince, anyone like that, they'd punch me at them. Obviously, they've been doing it for years before I'd even knew about MMA, but they weren't. They were like, come in, be a teacher, do this, do that. As long as you listen, you're going to be all right, you know what I mean? So that was nice for me, and it was a friendly environment. So I stayed and end up rolling out and doing what I knew that I'd end up doing anyway.
Well, I think that's kind of like the mindset that's cascaded down from like head coach Paul Rimmer. He must have instilled that with people like Paddy and other people who's then kind of naturally instilled it in you. Because if Paul Rimmer had an arrogance about him or had a bully sort of mentality, that would then show in Paddy and other people, and then you wouldn't feel comfortable, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I always say, if you see him Rimmer in the streets, you wouldn't think nothing about him. You wouldn't think he's a black belt. You wouldn't think he's pretty much do you in right there and then. You know what I mean? But once you get to speak to him, you realise that he's not there just to fucking beat you up. You know what I mean? He's there to teach you. He wants to pass on his knowledge. He's not just there to, but like be like the bully. If you get what I mean? He's there. He's generally there for a good reason. He wants to teach. He wants to spread what he knows, and like that's what I'm about. That's where I learn best, when someone actually wants to teach and not just saying you're doing that shit. What are you doing? Doing it shit. You shit. I'm not like that type of person. Like obviously now and again, you need a little slap on the back of the head and said like fucking pack it in, just take it serious now. But if it was all the time, I probably would just said fuck this, can't be arsed. I was like 15. I thought I was fucking the bollocks. You know what I mean? I thought, only thought I was hard basically. You know what I mean? Thought I'd just get fucking learn how to fight properly now. But obviously it's completely different.
And with Paul Rimmer, I don't know if you knew, brother, I only found out when I had him on the podcast that he was the first person from Merseyside to get his black belt in jiu-jitsu. Did you know that?
Yeah, I remember him saying that years ago, but I've actually forgot to listen to the podcast. And again, it just proves that he's the first person from by ours to get a black belt. Probably one of the first English ones, probably still in the top 100 people in England to get one. And considering how many people live in Liverpool, live in England, it's a good achievement to have, you know what I mean?
And I think that dude got it in 2009. You must have only been about like 6 or 7 then.
8 I would have been in 2009, born 2001. So like I would have been 8. Like I always say, this is mad. Like I always speak to like Vinci and that. When Vince had his first fight, I think I was 8 or 9. And now I'm training with them, you know what I mean? I'm still there, I'm still training with them, and they've been doing it since I was 9. I don't even know what MMA was then. I remember them being cage fighting in the Olympia, but cage fighting and MMA to me, it's just two different things. I thought it was just like bare knuckle boxing, you know what I mean? But obviously, fully enough, I ended up doing it.
For sure, brother. Now, you mentioned a couple of people that you train with at Next Gen MMA in Liverpool. There's some people that I've had on the podcast, and do you train with them? There's people like Matt Bonner I've had Nathan Fletcher, obviously Paddy Pimblett. Are these people you train with as well?
Yeah, they're people I train with daily. I literally just finished training with Paddy, doing an S&C session with Paul Reed, literally like an hour or two before we started this. Matt Bonner's pretty much my main training partner. Nathan Fletcher, I've been training with him since I was a kid. He joined at a similar time. Adam Cullen, train with him daily. Joel Downey Cave, Fran Breen. There's so many fighters in the gym that I'd be here all day telling you about it, who I've trained with in the past. But something that I'm proud of and something that shows in how good I am is from day one, I've trained with world champions. I've trained with high level guys. I've always trained with Paddy. I've always trained with Fishy and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So since I've been in the gym, there's always been a high level. It's not like there was a low level and now they became high. The high level was already there. I've worked my way up to get to a higher level with other people, but I've always trained alongside Paddy. Like, so I think a year in, just over little under a year in to training, I was allowed to come to the pro classes. I was allowed to train with the pros, and I still watch 15, 16 training with Paddy, who's selling out the Echo Arena, and then Ellis, who's about 10 years older than me, and all these lads who are well older than me, been training 10 times as long as I have, but I'm still in there hanging. Obviously, winning no rounds, but I was learning. I was getting beat. I was saying, oh, what have you done there? I was learning. I sort of knew how to conduct myself in a fight just by watching all them lads fight from when the day I started.
Sure, man. Now, brother, the lighting is not altogether perfect, but is that the remnants of a black eye you've got there, my friend?
A little bit. It's half a black eye, like half a scratch, like a Velcro burn off Matt Bonner. Doing wrestling with him the other day, funny enough. not even sparring, just straight wrestling, and end up marking me up. As the only person to have marked me up. I don't think I've had a black eye in any of my fights or any rounds. Mark Bonner's the first one to get it. He'll be made up with it.
Brother, there's a reason they call him the Beast Bonner, right?
There is, lad. To be honest with you, mate, the amount of shit I give Bonner on the daily, I'm surprised it hasn't happened earlier. I give that man so much shit on the daily. I call him bald, I call him old, I call him slow. Obviously, he knows I'm messing, but I'm surprised he hasn't sparked me already, to be honest, the amount of shit I talk to him.
And you briefly mentioned Paul Reed. There's a couple of people that mentioned him for not just the strength and condition, but the nutrition side. Is that the sort of stuff that he's working with you on?
Yeah. So Paul was actually a promoter. So we were talking earlier about Ali Khan. That fight was on Paul Reed's show. So that's how I got introduced to Paul Reed. He used to do Cage Warriors Academy in the Shinobis, and then he started drifting away from that. Started getting into training people, and then I think it was before my last 2 fights, I've been working with Paul Reed, nutrition-wise. He was just helping me with weight cuts, saying you should be eating this amount of food, drink this amount of water on fight week, refuel with this. And he's been helping me since then. But then I've seen what he's been doing with the likes of Bonner. Like Matt went to him last year after one of his losses, and he's completely flipped his whole career around. And he's went from getting beat on Cage Warriors to fighting for the title next. He works alongside Carl Evans in a Liverpool uni. They call it Vortex, like their company's called Vortex, who do it. But the people that they've got who working with them, they've got Molly McCann, Bonner, they've got Jazza Dickens, boxers, they've got Dennis McCann, they've got all these high-level world-class fighters, not just MMA, and they've got boxing, they've got all sorts who are working with them. And you look at these people, like you look at Molly, she's flying in the UFC. You look at Bonner, he's turned his career around, fighting for a world title. Jazza Dickens is fighting for a world title on fucking Canelo's undercard, you know what I mean? You're seeing all these people are doing the work with them, and they're going, like, their career's going well, and then they start doing work with them, and it just shoots off in a well better way. And it only makes sense to work with the best if you want to be the best. So I thought, let's stop just doing nutrition now. Let's see if I can do some strength work. And for the last year or so, I've been doing, well, not the last year, since about December time, I've been doing strength conditioning with Paul as well.
Well, it does make sense, brother, because it is a science. Like back in the days, weight cut was all about don't have anything to eat, just starve. That used to be a weight cut. Bulking was, hey, just grab loads of jacket potatoes and eat that. But there's a science to it, innit? And you've got to break it down to get it right, because at the end of the day, that's your engine, and you've got to have the fine-tuned precision fuel in there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, since I started, I've listened to stories of like Paddy and Ellis cutting like 8 to 9, maybe, I think Ellis has even done 10 key overnight. That's not even in a fight camp, that's overnight. And you know what I mean? I think, fucking hell, that's a bit rough, that, like. But when I first started, that's what it was. It was like, let's just get your weight as low as you can, but 5-6 keys sound, you'll fly through it, you'll cut that off overnight, no worries. Luckily, on my first fight, I was that skinny that I didn't even have to, just made weight by dieting. I was a skinny little kid. But I was got to, like, my second fight, my third fight, I had to cut a bit more weight. I had to get in the bath, so I had to water load, I had to do that type of stuff. And you realise, like, this shit's not good for me. I shouldn't be doing this. And obviously, around that time was when it sort of started coming up with, like, the science behind it, and people starting to take it more professionally, not just fuck it, jump in a bath and try and see how much weight you can get off and hope that you make weight. It's all science now. It makes sense to do it healthy. And something I always think about is you want to protect your body. You want to fight, because it takes a long time to get somewhere in MMA. You have to be healthy all the way through. Like, if I get injured now, or say I have bad kidney problems and I'm out for 2 years, that's 2 years of my young life that I'm learning and progressing, that I can't fight, can't train. I'm just stuck in a rut. But more importantly, after you stop fighting, you want to be healthy. You want to be able to still do things after fighting. Maybe you haven't made that £1 million contract that you all dreamed about, but sound, at least you can still provide, you can still work, you can still live. You don't want to just be a vegetable after fucking fighting and be fucked for money, if you get what I mean. You don't want to be stuck in that rut of, as a fighter, now I'm skint, I'm a fucking alky, I'm a pisshead, I've got no money, I'm fucking, you know what I mean? You still want to do well. If, obviously, I know I'm going to do well in MMA, it's not a question, but I still want to be healthy after, I still want to reap the benefits, don't want to just get all the way to the top, get all the fucking nice things, and then be fucked because I can't enjoy it, and you know what I mean? It's something I think about a lot, but at the end of the day, you're getting punched in the head, so you know there's a risk, but making weight healthy is the first step and not fucking killing yourself before you're 50, in my eyes.
Well, there is a risk, brother, but you can kind of limit that risk. For example, getting hit in the head. Back in the days, you know, people like Wanderlei Silva, they used to have like hard sparring session, you know, after every session, you know what I mean? And they thought that was the way to train, you know, to just spar really hard so they're ready to fight. But that isn't the case, is it, brother? To just keep knocking each other out every session just so that you're ready to fight, right?
No, is it fucking? You see it more and more coming up lately. Like Max Holloway didn't spar for his last fight, and he probably looked the best he ever has. There's people who don't spar. Like the Thais don't spar at all. They play. You know what I mean? They just tap each other. But it's not even about not knocking each other out. It's more about just taking care of yourself. You don't want to be having the brain damage. You don't want to be having the problems outside of the cage. You know what I mean? Like, if in a fight, I don't care if I get hit, you know what I mean? I don't care if I get hit in the gym sparring, I don't really care about that. But over time, it builds up. So, like, I might get hit with a bad shot in a fight, maybe get dropped, it hurts me. Yeah, so what? I'll be signed in a few weeks. But if I keep doing that, keep thinking with that mentality, I'll be signed 2 weeks later. Before you know it, you can't fight, you can't work, you've got all sorts of problems. So it's just another thing that you don't want to like have, you know what I mean? You want to live a nice life, you want to live a comfy life. You don't want to be living life like, oh, it's cut short by 20, 30 years because I was being a dickhead when I was 20.
Well, I went last week to do a podcast with David Grant at his gym at SPG Bishop Auckland. Now, David's doing really well. You know, he's come off 2 performance bonuses. He's knocked out both of his fighters. But one of the things he touched on as well was the fact that he doesn't encourage heavy sparring. It's all control. People will train twice a day with him, you know, these athletes that are going to be competing. But that doesn't mean that they spar twice a day. Everything's specific and it's broken down so that you have longevity in the sport and after the sport. And it's really cool to see someone who is young in age like yourself, if you don't mind me saying, and also early on in your professional career, but you're having that mindset and you're kind of paving the way and trying to keep on the right track and not looking for the fast track, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. If you look for a fast track, it gets cut short. It is what it's in the name. It's fast. So I could come on, I could fucking maybe just go out, but gun swing and fucking knock people out. And then obviously that's the aim. You want to knock them out quick. Maybe fucking take fights that you shouldn't really be taking and get lucky. You know what I mean? But eventually you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get fucking hit with a big shot. You're gonna end up getting hurt. And that's what, like, the thing is with me, I can turn a pro now, but it's not on my back. I'm not like, I want to turn pro now. I've always wanted to turn pro. It's because my coach just think, yeah, you're ready to turn pro. Paul came to me and said, you're ready to turn pro. Let's get you a pro fight. Yeah, sound. That's someone else saying it for me. Someone who knows what they're doing, who's done it for 100-odd fighters, who's telling me what to do. I'm listening. But Paul says it best. Back in the day, it was just about who was the best fighter. You know what I mean? If you could just bite down and swing, you'd fucking, like, look at the Chuck Liddells and the fucking Wanderlei Silvas. They just bite down, just swing, and they've made it for themselves. But that's when it was a small sport. No one knew about it. It was early. Now it's becoming like a more professional sport. Everyone's getting to a certain level. You can't just be a scrapper. You can't just come off the street and scrap and make it there. Maybe the odd person can, but every person who has a fight in the boozer can't just make it to the UFC. You know what I mean? So many people doing it. The level's just so much higher now. It's not just about being the best fighter. You've got to be the best fighter and an athlete. You've got to be a good athlete. You see in the UFC, you see the people who aren't athletes, they start doing well for themselves, but then they limit themselves to a certain point where they can't go above that. Like the Mike Perry's. Mike Perry is a boss fighter. He could probably knock anyone else on his day, but he's not a good athlete. He probably fights, goes home, eats shit, does what he wants, has 6 weeks to make weight. but he can only limit himself. He's never going to win a world title. He's never going to fight for a world title. He's never going to make that big money fighting. He might make outside of fighting because he's a loud mouth, he can talk, but fighting-wise, he's limited himself to a certain point. To be honest, I don't think he'll ever break top 10. But that's because he's not an athlete. He's just a pure fighter. You need both. You need to be an athlete and a fighter. It's like when you, like people say, like in jits, you need to be flexible and knowledgeable. Well, you do, but you can get away with it in fighting now because the level's so good. You can't just be a fighter or you can't just be an athlete. You see people who like come from the NFL and that who are not fucking ripped to the bone, 200 pounds of fucking lean muscle, and then they end up getting punched in by someone who's small, fat, chubby, just bites down and grits. You need the balance of both. You can't just be a scrap, like a fighter, and you can't just be an athlete. You need to be both. And that's what lately, the last few years, I've been trying to become the athlete, the high level athlete, and I have become the high level athlete. Like, I feel like I've been doing work since about my fourth or fifth amateur fight that some pros who are about 8 fights in don't even do now. And I know they don't do it because I hear it from other people and people who train at gyms and stuff like that. I know I'm doing work that they aren't, and they're in a place where they're starting to get recognised, they're starting to get these contacts put in front of them. But I've been doing this shit since I was fucking 3 and 2 amateur. So imagine when I am 5 and 0, 6 and 0 pro, it's going to be another level on top of that.
For sure, brother. And you mentioned Mike Platinum Perry, because he's on one end of the spectrum. And when you mentioned him, I was thinking of who would be the other end, and there'd be people like GSP would be on the other end, right?
Yeah, but again, GSP is that balance of a fighter and an athlete. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's fit. He's probably one of the fittest people in the UFC. He's fucking, you look at him, you know he's in shape, stuff like that. But again, if it came down to it, he can fight, he can bite down, he can scrap, he can dig deep. That's what I mean. Like, if you got someone who was maybe, say, I don't know, like a American football player, and they came over to MMA, they do well because they're so fit, they can outpace them. If they learn the basics, obviously, you've still got to learn certain stuff, but they can sort of cruise through, maybe get to the UFC, win 2-3 fights in the UFC just because they're fitter than everyone, they're stronger, they're more explosive. But then when they match with someone who's just as fast, just as strong, just as explosive, but can fight even better, that's when you realise, oh shit, these actually can't fight. They're just in good shape.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's a science, isn't it, brother? It's an all-round package. You can't just rely on one thing. You can't just rely on strength. You can't rely on muscle. You got to rely on everything, brother. Any opportunity that you can get that can optimize your skill. And the reason I say that is I remember watching a documentary that GSP did, and back in the days he was on about like shark fin and stuff like that helps with vitamin, and it's like madness. So he's really breaking it down just to get as much performance as he can from the engine that he's got, right? Yeah,
exactly. That's what it is. What people like, as an amateur, it's different because you don't get paid. You don't get the opportunities you get as an amateur are limited to what you get as a pro. Obviously, as a pro, the endless. You can get fucking any opportunity in the world you can get when you turn pro, but people don't capitalize on turning pro until they're 10 fights deep. So they just carry on like a normal day-to-day life. Like, I've got the opportunity now for them dreams that I had when I was a 14, 15-year-old kid to become true. So why wouldn't I work my ass off now? But some people are just tight asses sometimes. Like, they won't pay for the best coaches. They won't go and seek out the best advice because 9 times out of 10, to get the best advice and the best training and the best things, you have to pay for it. You know what I mean? And obviously it can be expensive at times, but it's an investment that one day, if you're confident and you work hard enough, that you know it'll pay back. Like, I'm only 19, and I'm seeking out the best strength condition I can. People from all around the country drive to go and see Paul Reed and train with him. Luckily, he's only about an hour away from my house, but twice a week I'm going, I'm paying, I'm going to training with him, I'm going driving an hour there, an hour back. I'm listening to what he's saying, I'm doing everything right. Because I know in the future it's going to pay off, you know what I mean? But people think, I need to wait till I can sort of see it happening, and I need to start to get 5 wins before I fully commit. Like, you need to commit from the start. because when you're 5 fight deep, you're fucking too far on now. You've got so much catching up. You've got to catch up on 5 fights. Like where I'm 0-0 now. Sean's 5-0 now and he's not doing it seriously. I'm 0-0, I'm taking it seriously. By the time I get to where we're fighting, I've got fucking 5 fights on you where you don't know what you're doing, you don't know how to train, you don't know what you're doing properly. And it'll show when I end up fighting them people.
And you are taking it serious, brother, because like you said, you're 19 years old, you got your head screwed on, you're looking for the best, people that you can surround yourself. So you're looking for people like Paul Reed for the strength and condition and nutrition. You got Paul Rimmer at Next Gen Liverpool. And now you're on the best podcast, brother. So you've got it all right, haven't you?
Yeah, of course, lad, of course.
No, brother. Let's talk about your next fight. So your next fight is in August on the Almighty Fighting Championship against Chris Hill. What do you know about Chris Hill as an athlete and what sort of fights has he been in?
Yeah, Chris has got a good amateur record. I think he's 7-3 as an amateur. He's fought a few decent lads. He's fought the likes of George Smith, who's Bonner's fought, and he's fought a few other all right kids. Like he's good. He likes a little bit of a scrap on the feet. He seems to shoot in for takedowns quite a lot, but I just think that where I'm at the minute is a good few levels above where Chris is. And that's no disrespect to Chris. I've got nothing against him. Don't even know who he is personally. Got nothing against him, but I'm not confident in what I'm doing. I know I'm miles above him. I know I'm not looking past him, and that's not what I'm saying. I know it's still going to be a hard fight. He's still going to come. He's still going to try and take me head off. He's still going to try and win, but I think I can beat it. I'm faster, better, sharper on the feet. I don't think he'll be able to get me down. And if he does get me down, I know my jiu-jitsu is so good with training for the likes of Paul, Ellis, eventually, that if he does go to the floor, I'm comfy wherever. I'm not one of these lads turning pro where I'm phenomenal at striking only. I've got no wrestling, no jits. I've got everything. I might not have shown everything in my fights, but I know I've got the jits that if shit goes wrong, I can rely on my jits. If shit goes wrong, I can rely on my wrestling. If shit goes wrong, I can rely on my striking. I know everywhere the fight goes, I'm comfy. And it shows when I'm sparring these high level fighters like Matt Bonner, like Paddy. Paddy's just been signed to the UFC, been sparring him since I was 15, 16. Bonner's fighting for the world title. I'm giving these lads hard rounds, like for the fights, you know what I mean? So if I can give it to them before I'm even pro, what am I going to do to someone else who maybe hasn't got the access to that scene? It's going to be a good fight, I reckon.
For sure, brother. Hey, listen, let me tell you another fun fact. I'm going to be the guy that's going to be announcing you into the cage and you walking out, brother. I'm going to be the MC on that fight.
Yeah, it's right. Have to give me a little introduction like you give me today, lads, to get the fans all hyped up.
Yeah, because I know Ray Thompson really well, the promoter, and we get on really well. I've done a couple of his shows, and he's invited me back to do all the rest of all the Almighty that he's doing, because he's heard me dulcet tones, brother, so he knows what's good. Listen, another thing I've got to ask you, right? How tall are you?
It changes. It keeps going up, to be honest. I think the last time I got measured, which would be about a year and a half ago, I was 6'1".
The reason I say that, right, I'm short on Tapology. You're shown as 5'3".
It's funny enough. Me and my missus Sophie, we were looking at that. We were looking at my Tapology, and I was saying it was like 5'4", 5'5". I was thinking, why the fuck's it set at that? But every time I try and change it to what it actually is, I try and change it to 6'1" every time. It says successfully changed, and then I refresh the page and still 5'3". So I just think, fuck it. Someone's gonna look at me Tapology, think I'm 5'3". Fuck it, they're gonna have a big shock when I'm towering over them and I'm fucking half leaning up the cage. Well,
that's the thing. I was doing my research, right, and I was thinking, this dude's a welterweight. He can't be 5'3". He'd be like someone off Middle Earth, like bloody Bilbo Baggins, somewhere. And when you were sitting in front of the camera, I was trying to measure you up and thinking, this dude is a 5'3". So you're over 6 foot, are you?
Yeah, easy over 6 foot. Like, I think I was about 6 foot when I was like 16. To be honest with you, it seems to get bigger all the time. Like obviously, when I'm only 19, I think you grew up about 21 or something. 24, I think it is. I think that's when you have your final, like that's when you like stop, like properly growing, I think. But I think you have your last growth spurt at 21, and then you fill out till you're 24. So I've still got fucking 4 or 5 years of ground to do. I probably won't even end up being a welterweight. I'll probably be a middleweight by the time I'm 22. To be honest, it's the way it's going. I started as a lightweight who could diet to 70k with a piece of piss, walking around like 74k. But now I barely see the 70 keys. I see 70 keys on fucking the weigh-in day, and then I'm straight back at the 80s.
Brother, listen, you need to stop sleeping in bloody fertilizer or compost that's making you gross.
Lad, it's a pain in the ass, lad. It's fucking spend a fortune on clothes. All my clothes don't fit. Like, I remember my third fight, I can't remember what fight, it's been 4 fights actually, on Cage Warriors. Bought these new shorts, got my sponsors put on them, thinking I was the real deal. And I found them through the week and banged them on before I started training. And lad, they didn't go past my knees, lad. They were starting to rip and that, you know what I mean? I thought, yeah, fuck this, these aren't getting put on, these are getting back in the bag. So they sat in the drawer upstairs, now they're never going back on.
Ben, thank you so much for sharing your time, your knowledge and experience with us. And I look forward to, one, announcing you on your fight and hopefully speaking to you after you've had your fight on another podcast, if that's okay with you, my friend.
Yeah, of course, mate. I'll get on anytime.